G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by Morphologist and Space
Hello.
Tomato. How, how is everyone today?
Pretty
Doing
good.
great.
Mm. So we've been talking for probably a bit over an hour now, and we thought, well, let's just do a casual conversation, and we're going to go through and talk about um, just a little bit of everything, like how we're feeling about the game, some other games, and just a little bit of everything. I think that kind of covers it in a nutshell. And we're not going to really put a time limit on it. We're just going to see where it goes, and if this goes fairly long, we'll cut it into two parts. Um, Other than that, I will do our little thing for Jaden. So hashtag Jaden in the comments. Eric Lanza unfortunately is no longer with us, and his hashtag was Jaden for your chance to win an F7A upgrade and a Super Hornet. Other than that, let's kick it off. Where do you want to start? And I think you were talking before the show about ED. So let's talk about ED, Elite and Dangerous. We'll go from there.
Yeah. So there's been and a lot of people who play Star Citizen also play Elite Dangerous. They're two very commonly compared games, and there has been a lot going on recently with Elite Dangerous with the recent update and a lot of stronger feelings that have been building up in the fan base for the last few years. And they're on a bit of a rocky patch right now, and a lot of people are seemingly trying out Star Citizen for the first time, maybe second time after taking a long break from it, as a lot of people see some of the things that they were really looking and hoping for in Elite Dangerous also being in Star Citizen, giving it a chance. So there has been a lot more talk in the Star Citizen community about Elite Dangerous, but for anybody who's not following, that's what I'm seeing. Morphologist, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so I've been watching a lot of videos to try to get my head around what's going on with Elite Dangerous because I honestly don't really get it so much. Like I did some coverage of Odyssey and I thought it was interesting. But apparently the gist of it is that Frontier, had this campaign where they were talking about all this really interesting stuff coming in Odyssey, but when it launched, when people actually tried playing it, apparently to them it was really grindy and didn't add very much to the game. Like it feels like apparently a separate game than from the main game from Frontier. Like doesn't actually change much about the space combat, which people felt really disappointed about. And not only that, the problem is that now that they're done with it, now that Odyssey has been released, that they're not going to be doing another big patch until a year from now when they go to console. So a lot of players are feeling like a lot of these issues aren't going to be addressed for a year. What's the point in sticking around? And to add fuel to the fire, apparently the developers also recently talked about how they don't think that adding walking in ships and ship interiors is something that they want to do, which is actually running counter to what they had originally talked about in their Kickstarter. Because they said, it's just like they don't think people are going to want to waste the time 30 seconds, 30, 40 seconds. And there are people who agree. I want to stress that. I get those
Mm.
comments a lot, like who wants to walk 30, 40 seconds in their ship. And to those people, I would say, and to Frontier, I would say that it seems like the majority of your core, like rock, like really, really intense base are really about being immersed in your universe. And so if you're taking away immersion, I think you're really hurting your main player base, which
Yeah.
are those people. But I'm not really a huge Elite Dangerous player, so I don't know. This is just what I've gathered from the information that I found.
Do you think there's a little bit of juxtaposition slash, like, I look at other games that have happened this year as well, and even things Chris Roberts has said. So I look at Cyberpunk. It's another game that was rushed, and he's literally said, "I looked at Cyberpunk. Look what happened. I don't want that to happen to my game." And I also think of a company like CD Projekt Red that can, and I shouldn't say this in a bad way because no one can really afford it to happen, but they can afford that to happen. Where if this happened to Star Citizen, we're done. There's no coming back from that. They have to hit the mark. And I think with what's happened with Cyberpunk and games like ED this year, I think that's really driven home to CIG that they need to nail it. And I also think
Mm,
us sitting here complaining about how long it's taking, and there are a lot of us doing that. And this comes up every year when we have a lull period. We're like, oh, I'm just so sick of waiting, and we are sick of waiting. But good things take time, and
it's true.
I think we'll all agree. the wait will be worth it.
I mean,
I
I
think
hope it will be.
I think something that's important to note with what's going on with Elite Dangerous, and I've been talking to one of my community members actually a lot about it.
Mm,
Is this isn't he? And he's very very big in that community. He creates a lot of content. He was very close with a lot of the employees over there. This this isn't something that came out of nowhere from the developers. While people do enjoy the game, it's an enjoyable game. You get thousands of hours of playtime out of it. There are also a lot of gripes that people have had throughout the years, and this is something we can kind of relate to, that have slowly kind of chipped away at the goodwill. And
mm,
less so CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk, this feels more like something akin to maybe like BioWare with Anthem,
mm.
in that they were continuously kind of missing the mark to the point where they were saying, okay, like things aren't going too great here, but they're going to start to kind of turn up. And then when that time came, the ball really ended up getting dropped. And that's why the reaction is so much worse. And that could happen with Star Citizen because we're all
Yeah.
waiting for,
Well,
this.
You hit on something really important there too. How is our patience? Like how often we've been waiting. Next year is 10 years since the Kickstarter. That's a
mhm,
really long damn time.
it's a long time.
Um,
Yep.
I'd have to say that I think I don't know about you, and I just like a really quick yes or no from both of you. My patience goes thin when there is a lack of communication, and I think since the board came in, the lack of communication has been a lot greater. We don't see Chris and Sandy much anymore, and I don't know. I firmly believe that that's not their decision. I think they've been asked to not talk as much. I don't know if that's fear of him talking about more feature creep or what, but I want to see more of Chris and Sandy. I want to see more developer talks. I don't want them taking 3 months off a year like they do currently. Like they take 3 weeks off every patch. You add that together, it's 3 months. Um, yeah, I don't know your thoughts. Yes or no? Are we being impatient, or should we expect more communication?
Well, can we go back just a step for a second
Sure.
because I want to talk about something you touched on earlier, and that was about how Frontiers is has lost a bit of the goodwill of the people who play Elite Dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think the part of the reason, I mean, all this I think is really tied together. Part of the reason why I think they've been curtailing their scope is because ultimately Frontier is a public company. They've got more than one IP. They've got investors to answer to. They've got cycles that they have to turn profits in,
Yeah.
and
It's a business.
it's really a business first and foremost. It's not really, there's no figurehead who's got this overarching incredible vision that drives everybody's excitement. It's much more of a team effort. But I think what happens with that sort of environment is that without that really strong figurehead pushing that forward, that there's not a lot of fight against the money people, and might end up having a worse product for it. Now I'm not saying that's what's happening with Frontier, but it does kind of look that way. And I think that's ultimately why Star Citizen is taking so long for one, but also for why Star Citizen is still so exciting for people is because it's really has stayed true to its own vision, even though that vision is just gargantuan, and in a lot of points in the past felt like it was just out of reach for reality.
You me- you mentioned passion. Chris is still very passionate, and we're almost 10 years in.
Yeah,
Mm.
enormously passionate. Yeah, he's very very passionate, and it's not just him though. Like it's the company culture. Like everybody that I've talked to who works for CIG, who has worked for CIG, they're really passionate. In fact, I've told this story before, actually, even I think on your show,
Yep.
Inforunners, is that when I went to CitizenCon, I wasn't the one who set up the conversation with the guys for the environment art team and the landing zone team. They came to me.
Yeah.
That was completely unplanned. They wanted to talk to me because they knew who I was. They knew they liked my architect reviews videos, and they wanted to talk to me about design. Like they're really, really into it. They took time out of their own day after being on panels and being tired for all that prep to say, let's sit down and just chat for like an hour and a half. It was wonderful. They
Pretty cool.
care about the project, and I think that more than anything has made me feel um made me feel like I believe in their vision, that it's that they're going to be able to accomplish some semblance of what their goal is of like a crazy end all be all of games.
Mm.
Mhm.
So
You hear that a lot. A lot of people are inspired by the amount of passion that they can see in this game. It,
mm,
it's not something that you get to see very often in this kind of a market.
Mm. No. There was a interview just today, actually, by Board Gamer with two ex employees of CIG, and
right.
they stated as much too. One gentleman, which was I believe he was an animator, he actually stated that he's only had that type of culture in two companies that he's worked at in 20 years. So that's a pretty big pretty big positive in my book, that that he still keeps in contact. They both keep in contact, actually. The gentleman that we interviewed, with people that still work at CIG, because they have that type of culture. That says a lot.
Right.
So that's
And so
we've heard bad things about their culture, but they basically in the interview rebutted it and said no, it's not the case at all.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much of that is true, even if there were some bad things about CIG, and I'm sure there might be. Nobody's perfect. It's not like they would say, that's a reality or not. But it seems like the overarching, like, by and large, the majority of CIG's developers and people who worked at CIG have had positive things to say about their experience.
Mm,
So the people who are saying negative stuff seem to be in the minority, because there are now over like 700 people working there.
mm,
If it was really so bad, I feel like there'd be, we might probably know more and more
Yeah.
legitimate sources. So I don't really buy so much of that stock. But
mm,
I think what bringing it back to the point that I was making earlier about comparing Frontier to CIG, I think that really is the difference, is that you've got this really inspiring visionary who is both detrimental but incredibly helpful for the project, because he wants to do all this crazy stuff, but the guys are almost like, wait, Chris, I don't know about that. It seems a little too much.
yeah.
But that's like what we're here for, because we're
Mm,
so excited for Chris's vision.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what keeps pushing the
mm,
envelope. And without that person to push the envelope, I wonder if that's what happens, is if Elite Dangerous is what happens, the practical approach
mm,
maybe isn't the right approach to get
mm,
a game like Star Citizen done. I don't know. To be perfectly straightforward and honest with you guys, Frontier reached out to me and they wanted me to play Odyssey. They
yeah.
sent me a really nice care package. I've talked to them before, and I've tried to be really honest with the community about how I feel about the project.
Mm.
I So with all that in mind, I I I'm not really into. I can't get into it. Like, I can't get
And that,
into Elite Dangerous. I've tried to play it and like get excited about it, but there's something about it. I don't know what it is. It's like, for
mm.
me, maybe it's the immersion of the experience that.
You got to be honest whenever you do any interview or review or anything
Mm,
like that. We,
mm,
we we recently did our first one on Toby, and I struggled with it because I didn't like, how do I put this? I'll put it in an Aussie way: crapping on other people's stuff. Like, so I didn't like saying the bad things about it, and I like saying the good stuff about it. And it's the
mhm,
same thing with ED. Like, I've played ED, I see where they're going with it. I struggled with a lot of the stuff in it. Even just learning the basic controls for me were very difficult. Um, but I see where they're going with it. But it's just
mhm,
it's a bit more simulatey to me than it is. You know how you kind of like got Battlefield, where it's kind of like a halfway between realism and fun. It's a lot more towards the realism side, and so it just lost a bit of the fun for me. That's kind of where I end up with ED. And as you said, it doesn't have something, and I think it's a bit of the fun is zapped out of it. But that's just my 2 cents, and it'll be
For me,
different for everyone.
I think a lot of what I didn't enjoy, and this might have been because I ended up playing Star Citizen before Elite Dangerous, but the lack of diversity in a lot of stuff in the game
Mm,
ended up kind of putting me off. A lot of the way the ships kind of, they all have their own companies, obviously, but they still very much, you can see that they're all from the same game, the same fiction.
mm,
The space stations all felt very similar when I would fly into them and land. It just, it kind of, it didn't really grab me that much because it didn't feel like it was a fully realized place yet.
mm.
I
Um,
guess
mm.
that's ironic to be said since I play Star Citizen all the time, but Star Citizen seems to have a lot more diversity for me to enjoy.
Mm. Well,
I don't know.
let's elaborate a bit more now, because one of the things we've got here in the notes is, don't does this actually benefit Star Citizen? And I think there's pros and cons to that, because the competition is healthy, and if ED dies, so to speak, and goes away, um,
I hope not. I just want to say I hope
Yeah.
not.
yeah, I like, even though I don't play it myself, and it sounds like you guys don't either. Competition is healthy. Innovation is healthy. You mentioned pushing the boundaries more, about him pushing, and and they're going, "Oh, that's a bit crazy." I watched a talk yesterday about the creators of Battlefield and Apex Legends, aka Call of Duty, and Titanfall, and they were talking about, if it wasn't for people pushing the boundaries, we wouldn't have got some of the biggest things that we did, like destructible environments and stuff like that. Now, you look at a game like Star Citizen and tell me things that we wouldn't have got if Chris didn't push the boundaries. No server meshing. I can see the list already. I'm not going to mention them all, but we've already got tech that just no other game has, and
Right.
and
And
I think it's required.
and
Sure.
I think this is ultimately the issue with putting stock and faith in and this is really, again, nothing against Frontier, in a company that has to answer to investors, that they'll push the envelope, because ultimately a business is not about taking chances, it's about producing a reliable profit. You need to turn the best profit for your investors. In fact, it's required by law. You can go to prison for making the wrong decision as as a CEO. I mean, it's nuts. You have to maximize profits, and unfortunately, that means that innovation is not a good idea, because you don't know if it's actually going to work, right?
Yeah.
And
So it's
if
a risk.
So the flip
it's a
side,
risk, yeah.
so the flip side of that is, they're building this all on the back of our money, so the risk is on us, not on them.
Right, it's on us. But I think the other thing is, like, they don't have to answer to a cycle to their investors. Like, they don't have to say, all right, this quarter we made this much money. Oh crap, it's down. Well, we got to scramble to make that money up again. We got to do some
So
you know
so
loot box or something, right?
so devil's advocate to that, then, do you think that they should report a little bit to us?
I mean, they already do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot different from investors because I mean, there are companies that have a lot of investors, but generally the amount of people who have put money into Star Citizen is more than, if there was a group of investors that were funding the game. So this is much more diversified. We all have much smaller stake in it than probably the investors do in a company like FDev or CD
And
Project Red or something like that.
I want to be clear here for everybody watching. By the definition of investor, we are not investors, because we have,
Yeah.
like, we say that we're investors, but we're not
Investors.
legally investors. We have no say over the project. You sign an agreement where you're giving them money, you're donating money to them, and they're in return giving you a ship, and that's it. Like, that's the end of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go on. I just wanted to say that, because a lot of people, people, especially the naysayers, tend to like poke at that point and say, "You guys, you're not investors and stuff." Like, yeah, I get it, but
Yeah.
I feel like I'm investing in the future of my own happiness by giving them money, because I want them to succeed. That's the sort of investment I'm talking about.
That's
I'm not
it.
talking about a true financial investment.
Mhm.
But yeah, just to separate those two.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
invested and you want them to succeed. That's 100%.
Yes.
Yeah. You were saying, Space?
No,
Sorry.
I was basically done, but that's an important point that the investment is in our happiness. It's not in
Mm.
getting a return of some sort
Yeah,
Um,
not a
or a
financial return.
financial return. Yeah.
do we want to move on to 3.4 that came out today, that I
Yeah,
didn't know about till
talk about
about 10 minutes into our conversation with you two, because I was asleep and then I woke
yeah.
up. But yeah,
But
so
we
I
could,
woke up to the
before
P2U.
we
Go ahead.
Before we do, though, I just want to say welcome to all the Elite Dangerous players. We're happy to have you. I hope that your game doesn't die. I really want
Mm,
Frontier and Odyssey to
Yeah.
succeed. I just
yeah,
want to be clear about that. I think more competition is great, and it can only be good for Star Citizen. So
100%.
I hope to see you guys in the verse.
To
No,
be honest, I really really hope that we someday see sound design that can compete with Elite Dangerous, especially with things like the way that the travel works, the sound of the engine spooling, that kind of stuff. I love the sound design in that game of all things, and I would never know that I want more than Star Citizen if that wasn't there. So I really do hope that Elite Dangerous sticks around. I think it will. I think it'll be around for a long time. A lot of people who even are coming over to Star Citizen, they're saying, "I'm still playing Elite Dangerous. I'm just
Mm.
giving Star Citizen a try." So I think the game can easily bounce back from this, make some key changes, and maybe reconsider trying to, at least from what I've heard, launch a new game or a new project of some sort every year.
Mm.
That's a hefty
I think it's
hefty job.
I think it's healthy to play other games while you're waiting for Star Citizen. In fact, I've been looking
Yeah,
for other games that give me things or teach me things about Star Citizen. Like there's
Right.
a game that just came out recently that's got server meshing in it, believe it or not, called Scavengers. That's how I know that they're probably going to get server meshing working because it's already got it.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
you know,
yeah. Few applications,
Satisfactory that you and I still have to get around to playing Tomato.
right? Yeah.
Uh, Ark Survival Evolve is one I've looked at several times because how you work as a tribe is going to tell you how you work with others as a crew. Like you don't want to get to like I'm in this org and then you go to play this org and there's all these people that don't want to go out mining because they just want to shoot things. You know,
By the way,
there's
our Arc Survival actually has server meshing as well. They've got something called static server meshing,
there you go.
not dynamic, which is the first iteration of what CIG is going to have.
Mm,
And when you cross that boundary, there's actually like a hitch and a small loading time.
yep.
Just
Mm.
as it's really informative to play other games and like see how they're doing it and what the
Yeah.
results are of that type of server meshing.
Sea
I
of Thieves is also a great game to play to kind of get that multi
mm,
crew experience.
yes. Just
Yeah,
pirate
the
ships
one
instead
that's
of
amazing.
pirate ships instead of
That too. Yeah.
spaceships. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's another thing to look at. Do we want to move on to 1.34 that I
Yeah,
woke up
yeah,
to
yeah.
this
I
morning
just
and I haven't even looked at?
I just
And
wanted to end on a good note.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
afraid that we were being too negative about Frontier. I didn't want to be
I
that way
don't
like
yeah,
it's
I don't
before we
want it to
started.
come
yeah.
off as
I
negative.
Mhm.
This is purely a journalistic, we're just looking at the game. It's a
Yeah,
one apples to apples comparison.
it's a casual conversation.
it is. It's
Yeah,
the only apples to apples to comparison.
it
So
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the first thing we've got under here is big features, and I think the obvious one, which is in the background, which apparently this is the photo from the main menu, is
mm,
Horizon, which I'm fully expecting to see Morphologis reviews Horizon coming to a YouTube near you very soon. I have no doubt. So that is something you're planning yet? Did you want to? Are you going to do that in some point in the future? Should we look forward to that or not?
yeah, absolutely. You should look forward to that. I am really looking forward to doing a video on Orison, specifically doing a video on the architecture that they've designed. It's a really fascinating piece of architecture because it's you're examining it from above and below. It's an interesting proposition for design to have to consider those elements, and I'm
Mm,
eager to see how they've resolved those. I'm also really interested to see if I can speak with some designers over at CIG to have them come in
mm,
on my conversation and just kind of talk design like what I did with CitizenCon. That's
yeah.
what I really am excited to do. I want to understand like what's their thought process behind the procession of space. Like when you exit the hab, like what are you seeing and how do I navigate that space? What's the feeling that you want to communicate with this space? What's the story you want to tell? Like all that stuff is really interesting to me.
Yeah. I don't know about you two, but Horizon was the one landing zone I was waiting for out of the ones in Stanton from the get go. But it's definitely I always knew it was going to be one of the last just because of the cloud tech because it's the newest of all of them. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It was
Um,
definitely at the top of my list. I
Yeah.
was very excited. I mean, just the idea of a gas giant that I've never done that before, never seen that before. Microsoft Flight Simulator was the first time I've seen people fly through like actual cool huge clouds. And we knew about Crusader before that game came out, so we didn't really have anything to picture. It was just the concept art and then our imagination. That was very cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
and taking the other tech that we've got, like what other cities look like at nighttime, sunsets and stuff like that, and rolling that into the gas and cloud tech and the city in the sky and all that. I haven't seen it yet myself, but I can already
Neither have I.
picture what that's going to look like. So I'm probably after we've done the show, I'm probably going to go have a gander.
Same.
Yeah. Well, you were while we were talking before the show, you were already in there walking around, but
And I was walking around at Port Alisar. I was trying to set up my stream to get the camera just froze.
yeah, it
I was
did.
trying to set up my stream to start there because that's where we started. I've always had problems with my input from this camera. I don't get it. Anyway,
It's fine.
I
We'll just point and laugh at you. It's fine.
thank you, so kind of you.
Keep a frozen
'Cause-
picture of him there.
Yeah.
I want to start in Port Alsar because it's where we started. If you started, if you played the PU when it came out for the first time, which I did. I wasn't in a Star Citizen with the hangar module at that point. I was still kind of sitting on the sidelines and watching to see where it goes. But when the PU came out, I was there. I was like, I want to see what's going on with Star Citizen. This looks really exciting. And I remember stepping out on the pads at Port Alsar for the first time and looking up and seeing that gas giant and thinking, one day I'm going to be able to fly over that gas giant if they complete, accomplish their goals. And so now today's that day. It's really an incredible achievement, I think. And not only that, I mean, there isn't really a game out there that's done a volumetric cloud gas giant, a gas giant, a cloud tech that wraps an entire spherical objects. That's the real scale of a planet. I mean, it's nuts,
Pretty crazy. Yeah. It's something else.
Even the like the range points with that cloud tech was impressive, but this is just a whole nother killer fish again.
Yeah.
I think we're getting very spoilt for choice at the moment, especially. Combat changes. That's another really big one. I'm hearing things like they need a lot more balance and stuff like that, but I think we're starting to get some movement, and I can already see previous peers because they've been very, let's just say, loud the last couple of months. I'm interested to see what thoughts they have on it and how much that's going to actually change the entire system. You were mentioning Urkel before the show, Space Tomato. In regards, was that you that mentioned that?
That was probably Morph.
Was it you?
No, I didn't. No, it was
someone
it was
mentioned
you.
it.
I didn't.
I thought it was you. I thought you said.
I
I thought you said they put all the new weapons in. Maybe it was. Maybe that was.
I don't know that.
Starlet was with us before the show. Maybe it was Starlet.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I think it was Star. Yeah, it was her. Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, they're already putting all the new balance changes in and tweaking it, and you can do the DPS and all that. Yeah, she's just messaged me. It was her.
Right. So, sorry. Go ahead, Space.
The combat changes are just. I mean, it's something they've been talking about for a couple months now, and it's one of those changes that isn't on the roadmap. It wasn't ever on the roadmap. I don't think it was. It didn't really show up on the monthly reports either. But it's a huge change, and I think it's something that we're going to start to see more of. As very clearly, they are finally starting to say, okay, we're reaching this point in the alpha where we're going to start to lock in proper values. We know what each of the factors are going to be behind these things. So like weapons and armor, we finally understand where we're going with that, so we can start to lock in these values because they won't change too drastically, and they're starting to finally balance things against each other. And I think that could be big.
I think you might be a little wrong there, because what happens when they chuck armor in the game?
Well, I feel like they're probably accounting for that right now.
But then is that balanced without armor? And then
they'll have to rebalance, of course.
That's what I mean.
If you get it into if you get it into like, a window, an idea, you can say, okay, well, the Terrapin's going to have this kind of armor. Obviously, that's going to be stronger than the Cutlass Black. So now we know that the Cutlass Black compared to the Terrapin is down here. And they start to kind of draw that line and get every ship into a solid place. They can finally start to say, hey, this ship isn't necessarily better. It's just going to work better for your choice.
Okay.
Like you were talking about earlier. I think maybe before the show we were talking about that.
We were.
I think that they believe that they actually might have the tool they finally need to balance the game in the way that they want to balance it. Yeah, armor and modules and being able to directly hit certain modules in your ship are going to be a big change, but ultimately there's a goal for time to kill, a goal for how it's supposed to feel, how much time you're supposed to have when you're engaged and before you die or you escape. And there's also a very clear objective, I think, in their mind from what they've said about what ships play what role and what a meta actually is. Because from what I've heard from them is they don't want a meta necessarily. They want you to be able to choose from the variety of ships that we have what best suits your gameplay style and go with that and still be viable in combat and in PvE, which was not the case in 3.13.1.
Do you think that's a little bit naive? Because
I
every
don't know.
game has a meta. Every single one.
So
Meta
so
to
what they're
me, meta to me is just the best thing at that time.
right, the best thing at that. That's true. I don't think that's necessarily true because okay, I thought of this before.
Right?
There's an MMO I used to play, Silk Road Online.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty old Korean MMO, and there were different builds you could have. Now this is completely different than Star Citizen, but I'm just giving you an example of like there was no meta in this game.
Yep.
There was you could be a pure strength character, which was like you just hit really hard, but you've got no magic, or you could be a pure magical character and you hit with your magic really hard. And those were the two options. But there was also something in between you could choose, where you could be a mix of both, and either a little bit more one side towards the other. In that way, and they also had different like classes, right? So there wasn't one class that everybody was because that was the best class to be. There was a bunch of different classes you could be, and they all had their pluses and negatives. One of them, blocked but didn't do as much damage. The other one did way more damage but couldn't block any damage. Like that's the sort of direction I feel like CIG is trying to go with their ships, is to give you an edge up in one particular area or couple areas, but be weak in another area.
So
Rock, paper, scissors.
So essentially what you're describing with ships is almost like classes for ships. So the example
Kind of, yeah. I mean, they already have that. They already
yeah.
have they have
Like fluid
interceptors,
classes.
lights, mediums,
Yeah.
heavies,
Yeah. So
and they've actually
an obvious example is something like the Hurricane, which is a glass cannon. Doesn't have a lot of armor, but does a lot of damage at the time.
right.
Yeah, so and then you'd get something more tanky that's in the same class. Let's talk about, say, the Vanguard. It's kind of like the more tanky version of the heavy fighters. And then you'd probably get something in the middle that they haven't announced yet. But you get where I'm going.
Or you
Yeah.
could go one further and say compare the Hurricane to the Scorpius. They're fairly similar ships, but they're gonna have definitely different play styles.
Where
Oh,
look,
that's idea. Yeah, this seems like the direction they want to go. Yeah, we don't
mm,
have the Scorpius yet, but it seems like
Right.
it would be that way. And if that can be achieved, I think that ultimately is the place I hope Star Citizen goes.
the Hurricane,
And
from what I can ascertain, and the Scorpius is the Hurricane flies more in a straight line, where the Scorpius is more maneuverable and it's more about dodging the bullets. Where the Hurricane's just
Mhm.
straight line, fast, goes through,
mm.
shoots, and then stops. Yeah.
Well, I think an important point when it comes to this discussion about meta and balancing is that a good game development company is going to acknowledge that meta and try to make a change to help to balance it. Like you said, I think Morph, you said it was, or no, X, I think you said what is favored at that time, right? So
Mm.
CIG needs to learn that very quickly and be able to shift that around while we're still here in the alpha and beta stages.
See that as a former designer myself, one of the things that I always hated, and it's just because of easiness, is if something is above, they bring that down to be in line with everything else.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the time you lose that fun sometimes when you do that. So sometimes I think you need to bring everything else up to equal it, and that can be really hard to do well.
Uh, I
I
can
So
agree.
imagine.
my main thing that I want them to do is just make sure every ship is fun. I don't I like it might be a little weaker, but as long as I'm having fun, it's okay. Um, and I think that's the key thing. It is a game after all. You are there to have fun.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
because like fundamentally, how do you balance a medic ship to be equal to a combat ship? They're kind of opposite things. Like so. Of course, there's going to be ships that are weaker, and you want that rock paper scissors analogy where you've got your tank, your healer, and
Mhm.
and your damage. And I think they have the flexibility to pull that off. And I think every ship, like even if we mention things like the Scorpius and the Hurricane and the Vanguard, you can clearly say they all have strengths and weaknesses. So if you can pick a stronger damage ship's weakness and weaken it, then therefore in my book it's balanced. I think a part of the meta is actually going to be the knowledge of people. Like Morph mentioned, if you can target a very specific component, and even if you know, hey, that particular brand of component has a weakness. You know what I mean? Like they can put some pretty insane details into this game. And so if it's made by a particular manufacturer, if I hit it with this disruptor, it's going to die 5 times faster. Things like that.
Mm.
They can put a lot of little things in that. And then the next patch, the company found out that had this thing, and they fixed it. And so now it's another component that has a problem. You know what I mean? Like that. And it can go backwards and forwards like that. It doesn't have to be the ships necessarily that they balance. It could be the components.
Yeah.
Now I'm trying to find where I read this, because I think this is also important to know about 3.14 and how they're rebalancing everything. Is that they've basically made every class of ship be the same within its class.
Yeah.
So with not just shields, but also with maneuverability and acceleration. So every ship that's a light ship now has the same identical acceleration and an HP pool, and same with mediums and heavies and interceptors. Everyone has the same for that class. And the reason why they're doing that is because they want to figure out how to balance the game by cutting out some of those X factors that they've created through the years of making different ships and not considering how they compare to one another.
Almost feels like a full reset in a way, doesn't it, when they say that?
It is. I mean, it's a complete full reset. Basically, forget everything you know about every ship in the game. Throw it out the window. It doesn't exist anymore.
Is that
apocalyptic, you might say?
I mean, that's the apocalyptic change that we're talking about. Yeah.
Is that a good thing from you guys' point of view, or a bad thing? Like, is it overkill or?
No, absolutely, it's a good thing, because you think about right now, if you've done any PvP in the game, what ships do you see? You see Sentinels, you see arrows, and you see Talons.
Yep.
You don't see any other ship. If you see another ship, it's because someone's being funny and they want to try something different because they're bored of the Sentinel, the Talon, and the arrow.
I feel attacked. I'm always flying in a Super Hornet.
I've been
like that ship. It like falls apart like cardboard in the wind. I swear to God.
You watch it.
You can have a bit.
I love that ship.
You can have a fair bit of fun flying some weird ships, though. Like about 2 weeks ago, I was doing missions in Starfarers and Reclaimers, doing the bounty hunting missions in groups.
Yep.
So much fun, just because they are just like the wonkiest ships to fly. But they're just like the Reclaimer is scary OP. Like those turrets. You, as one person, you can fire 6 size 4s. That's crazy. Just doof, and it just like, and the ship just poof gone.
I've seen that, yeah. But so I was saying is like the thing is what I'd hope to see is for other ships to become truly viable in combat, where you're not just always losing, like a multi-crew ship. Basically, I'd like to see multi-crew ships be viable, and I think this is an opportunity, and they know this, to try to make that a reality, so you can play with your friends and not feel the proposition where, should I have them on my turret or should I have them in another ship? It's always been, why put somebody in a turret? Just have them fly another ship. Regardless of the ship, it's better than having somebody in a turret. I
think we'll all agree turrets are at a much better place as they've been over previous years.
They have been.
Me and you recently, Space, within the last month, I was in a turret that you were flying in a Hurricane. Now, if we'd gone back 12 months before that, you and I wouldn't have been doing that. Because the turrets were shocking.
They were awful before. They've definitely made progress on that. I still feel it's not quite where it needs to be, but
agreed.
They've made progress.
It's where it needs to be for PvE, but not for PvP, which is that's the big issue. Like you can't have somebody in a turret for PvP. You're just gonna die.
Yeah.
And so, Morph, you kind of to segue, you mentioned that this is a great chance for them to start to create reasons for people to want to be, doing things in the ships with their friends, the multi-crew ships. And in this patch, we're getting missile operator mode, which kind of is introducing the idea of operator mode. It's something we've had, but CIG is now talking about it as an actual sort of feature in the game that they're going to slowly build out to bring these different roles into multi-crew ships and into these stations. And I think that's a pretty big deal for 3.14 as a foundation laying feature.
Yeah.
I just had a really epiphany cool idea. Can imagine in operator mode if there was a missile that was actually flown by the co-pilot. You literally fly it into the target.
I think you give that opportunity now by introducing a role called missile operator mode, where you start to think of these. Now, I don't going a little bit in Imagineville, but I think that would be a cool idea, because ultimately I think we still need to give we need to make co-piloting fun. Yeah. The game needs to be fun for people to have co-pilot. I want to have a co-pilot, and the co-piloting and the multi-crewing has been done well in other games. There's games like what's the name of it? There's a game where you could like fly in a spaceship together with a bunch of people. It's really, the graphics aren't great, but the
Oh,
mechanics are fun. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, yeah, I
I
know
was
the
just getting a
game.
clip for my new video from this.
We should play
It's
that
the crew deck
sometime.
one, right? The VR game.
Yeah, it's a VR game, something like
The,
that. There's
Yes.
also a
there's an
like
older
Star
one.
Trek game too.
Yeah, there's an older one, and I'll introduce it to you guys. It came out a few years ago, and it's really low tech, but it looks like Quake 2, but in a spaceship, and you can actually land on planets. And I'll find it and I'll introduce you to it. We should play that sometime. I think it would be really interesting from a development point of view.
Okay.
So
I'll find it and link it to you. Sorry.
Okay.
so anyway, like the point is like it is can be fun. Like the possibility of having multi-crewing has been proven to be fun by with other games. Like you
Mhm.
can make it entertaining, but CIG has not been able to get to that point yet.
Mhm.
With I can hear myself, by the way,
Oh,
for somebody's microphone.
yeah, it's me. Sorry. Yep,
Oh, no worries, no worries.
I've probably been
Um,
echoing for a while.
So no, actually, just heard it now. That just started happening. So so I think that this is like an opportunity, as you alluded to, Tomato, for them to actually start introducing some engaging multi-crew gameplay, because as they explained it, and this was really cool to learn about in the last ISC, missile operator mode and the missile locking system now isn't as just a simple time to lock. It's actually like you can lock for a longer period of time and get a better lock. And there's like 5 tiers of locking, like 1,000 to 5,000 detection. And obviously, you won't be able to be within locking range forever. So you've got to make a decision. It's going to take some concentration. How long do you want to lock onto somebody before they get out of your lock on range and you no longer have the opportunity to shoot that missile? What missiles do you want to use? What countermeasures are they going to use? Do you want to switch it up? Do you want to go from EM to IR to cross section and try to really mess up their ability to counter your missiles? I think that's all really interesting and engaging and tactical. And now I think in 3.14 it gives us hopefully the opportunity to have somebody do that sort of thing, especially in a ship where like the even just the pilot doesn't have much to do in the Hammerhead. Now they have something more to do because they've got a huge complement of missiles at their disposal to be able to use. And here's another thing, like missile operator mode is, I don't know if you guys noticed from the previews, it was very obvious to me, is that they're going with the very modern fighter jet approach to missile operator or missile locking. Is it's now tied to your visor, so you can look off axis and lock onto a guy that's next to you and fire directly off axis at him, like you can do in the real world, which you couldn't do before. You had to be directly looking at somebody and had to be within a circle to be able to lock on. Now, if you've got a co-pilot, they can look way off axis and shoot somebody off to your side while you're focusing on one target, which is great.
Advantage of
Yeah, that was
single versus multi-fighter, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah.
that was actually, I had noticed that, and that made me very curious to test the new HUD layouts that they're doing, because I was trying to figure out what's attached to the canopy and what's attached to the helmet. You're
Yeah.
seeing some things moving and some things not, but that's a really good point. And I'm wondering if scanning, because technically scanning is already an operator mode, um, you're
I think they
essentially
did.
now able to
I
go
think they
ahead.
did say that it was going to be a mode too. I think they did say
Yeah.
that. I could be
Okay.
wrong, but I think they did say it, which means that modes can be separated to different seats.
So kind of
Right. And I was wondering,
like mining mode and normal mode. It'll be missile mode and normal mode type of thing.
yeah, missile mode, combat mode, scanning mode, quantum, they'd all be different sort of different levels of your operator system. But yeah, if they're going to start to allow us to split off these operation modes, I don't know how deep they're going. They'll probably say, okay, well, this one is now going to be its own standalone mode now that we've redone it in the UI. So maybe now that scanning's been redone, that'll be a thing. I'm really excited to see when quantum travel gets redone and we now have somebody in a dedicated seat and I can just point to them and say, like, send us.
And I
Plot our
think
course.
that might be the nav guy, because they did talk about how now they're looking into using scanning probes as part of your
Right.
scanning suite. It's like its
Mhm.
own mini game, which I'm very happy about, because I've been talking about for a long time that I think the system they set up in EVE Online is wonderful. It's its own skill set where you've got to put out probes and scan, triangulate a location of somebody within a system. Like there's a skill to it. You can't just say, "Oh, this guy, I'm gonna go jump to him." You've got to like find the general area, ping it. Oh, you gotta get another one. All right, ping it again. Another one, ping it again, and then you get like a rough area. I think that's really fun and engaging gameplay that you could give to the navigation guy who would then quantum jump you.
Someone did a
Yeah.
really good video on it. I've seen
I
it.
Oh, did you?
actually,
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I was researching that video, I actually watched a lot of Eve's scanning to kind of get a better idea of how it could play out. And I agree with you. I like how they do it. I think that's going to be very cool.
Mm.
Yep.
My favorite part of that is the idea that, and I want them to double down and confirm this, but it sounded like they were saying you basically know the cross sections that you'll see, even if they're kind of broken up or a little confusing. You can dip into your own knowledge, your own memory of those cross sections and reliably choose something out. And that is by far one of the best things about that system,
Mm.
if it's true.
Yes. They said that there was going to be like drive signatures, and
Yeah.
that certain you'd get an energy signature for an area that you scan down long range. And
Mhm.
from your own experience, you could be like, all right, that drive signature is something that looks more similar to an Idris or more similar to a caterpillar sized ship. So you get the more or less like classification of the ship, or like I think it's this, but you could be wrong and find out it's actually a big group of small ships together that's really tightly packed, or a
Yeah.
big ship's actually hiding the drive signatures of a bunch of small ships that are all around it, a fleet. And I
Yeah.
think that's really cool because then there's actually some skill and like wonder involved. Like, do we know we're jumping into the right situation here? Are we going to be safe? Do we
Mhm.
need a scout ship? You know,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
cool stuff.
That's going to be great. I'm really excited to hear more about that.
Definitely.
Definitely,
So,
especially because scanning is one of the features in this patch, right? This the one of
Mhm.
the other new features in 3.14 is that they've redone the scanning system and the UI.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see where they go with this system because it could be its own little job on board a multi-crew ship.
Mhm.
I think that's going to lead into some of the first exploration gameplay. That is for sure. I was actually hoping that the first type of exploration stuff we saw was like finding mining nodes and stuff like that because they're already in the game. But it looks like they're going more towards bounty hunting, as in finding targets and stuff like that, and that type of UI. But we'll see how that pans out in
Mm.
future patches because I don't think that's quite developed enough yet in my book.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, Salty Mike, who's another content creator for Star Citizen, I had a conversation with one of the developers responsible for concepting and working on mining. And one of the things that he said, which I completely agree with, is that mining needs to have nodes and like very dense areas
Mm.
Yeah.
of stuff. It's not just about the kit that you have; it's about the world that it's in and like
I did
these
make
different locations.
I did mention this before the show, but we did a professional point of view on mining, and one of the things that we haven't even touched the surface on yet is literally we're going to be able to mine underground on planets. And
I
at the
truly hope so.
yeah, and they actually went through because you know how the do you remember seeing shots of the I always say the wrong name
Prospectors
prospector?
concept art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
prospector where it mines downwards. Do you remember that at all, Morph? The
Yes, I do remember that. There's the original concept art actually has it mining
mm.
directly downward. Yes.
So
Yeah.
without going into the whole episode, but long story short, that'll be kind of like a scouting vehicle to find these nodes under the ground, and then the bigger ships will come along and actually find these big nodes and suck them directly out of the ground. And the way they're going to do that is that you'll have like a scan or seismic data that's displayed on that radar HUD in your ship, so you don't actually have to go under the ground to get to the rock. You're literally bringing the rock out to you. It sounds weird, but that's how we do it in real life. So it's the same thing.
Interesting.
I,
Interesting.
Yeah, and we haven't
I
even
would
gone
be
there yet. So yeah.
I would love if it went in that direction. I really do. That would be a big shift from what they're currently doing,
Mm,
and would probably lead to a lot of uh refactoring, but I think somewhere in between the two, what we have now and what that suggests would be really good.
yeah, and but the other thing that it really showed me though was that all the ships are going to have some part to play in that. So let's look at the really big one, which is the Orion. It can't go down the planet, so it just dominates space completely. But you get something like Pioneer that can go everywhere. It's the really jack of all trades, but it just isn't powerful enough to do everything. And then you get something like a Mole, where the Mole can't do the ground mining. It only does space and on surface mining. So you can see the last ship that we don't have out of those four ships, I think has to be the ground mining ship, in my personal opinion. But I could be wrong. It could
Mm.
not go that way at all, and that's just based on what professionals have said. And we had a geologist and stuff like that. But I was very excited from what I heard. Anyway, do we want to move on to some of the other stuff? Like, we're like not even a quarter of the way through the things we wrote down here. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we should let's talk about 315
right.
and
Well,
what's
before we
coming.
do, let's talk about one thing from 314 that leads into 315. I think it'd be a good way to segue it. The law system changes.
Yeah.
So we've got
Right.
something
Oh, yeah.
weird. They've taken like 6 months to put in the game. Surrendering. That seems weird. Why would we need surrendering? Well, 315.
Well, you tell
So-
us, because you were the one talking about it before the show, so I'll just let you keep talking about it. Go.
Right. So in 315, there's going to be a massive cataclysmic change to the game. Just like combat's being cataclysmically changed in 314, the way we play the game is going to be completely changed in the way in 315. So there's something in Star Citizen that's been around since it was advertised by Chris Roberts, since it was pitched by Chris Roberts, called Death of a Spaceman. It's an integral part of Star Citizen's structure of the game. And in it, it's basically you have the possibility that your character will die permanently. So that death then becomes very meaningful. In Chris's vision of the end of the game, you have a set number of times that you can be healed and recovered. Your body can be fixed before your body degrades to the point where you can no longer sustain that body, and your character then dies. And when your character dies, your ship items, everything that belongs to that character then passes on to your next of kin, which would just be another character that you create, either a family member with the same family name or whatever you want to do. You can create anybody you want, but they get that new stuff minus a bit of the reputation that you got while you were living within that character that you created.
Do we want to mention what I was saying to you before the show too about genetics as well? How they've actually put genetics into that as well?
Right. So one of the things that's a good point. There has been a change since the original concepting of this idea from Chris Roberts. The latest change has been that now, instead of your body being recovered, which it'll be recovered. In some situations where your body is completely destroyed, say like your ship is incinerated, like completely goes boom in a like a nuclear explosion. There's no way for your body to recover from that. It's just been completely particleized, right? So the idea is now that if that does happen, that instead of being recovered, you are actually being cloned in a cloning facility, in a hospital. And so you're going to have a set number of times that your clone you're able to be cloned, because your DNA is going to degrade to the point where it can't be cloned anymore, which is this is what's going to cause death of a spaceman then. Instead.
And you, like, I remember way back in the day when he first made that original post, he talked about how when you make your next of kin, so you'll either be playing as your son or your daughter. I remember him talking about things later on about how, say, if you have certain genetic traits, depending on who your partner is, your son or daughter will inherit some of their traits as well. So if you happen to fall in love, I don't know if they're going to make it so you can do it with aliens or whatever, but you could actually inherit some traits from different parts of this of the galaxy and fold that into your genetic code and your new offspring going forward, which I think is really interesting. You could literally almost genetically build your character, which is something really interesting. So you could, over the generations, like you do on Earth, you can blend your genetic code. I just find that really interesting, but maybe that's just me.
No, it is really interesting. That part of it though is not part of 315, but what's coming
sorry.
in 315 is the precursor to it, right? So
yeah, sorry, I did get way ahead of myself there. Sorry, but yeah,
you got way ahead of it. But that's good. That's the trajectory we're going.
Yeah,
that's their goal. But what 315 is bringing then to bring us back to 315?
Yeah, sorry.
Is that we're going to be getting physicalized inventory for tier 0, which is, I'll go into that later. We'll go into that later, what exactly that means. And we're also getting tier 1 healing, like medical stuff. And that's going to give us down states where you can be incapacitated or killed and be within a state where you're within your body for a set number of time before you're fully dead. And the only thing that is missing from Death of a Spaceman at that point is clone degradation. So 315 has everything up to clone degradation, because you're going to be, you're going to have all these different down states they want. and respawning in hospitals like they want in cloning, but not the huge detrimental issue of permadeath just yet.
Now, this might be a
Yep.
good time to mention you just did a video on this, didn't you, Morph?
I did.
So
Mhm.
that's why it's all fresh in your mind. But yeah, I'll try and leave a link below to Morph's video if you want to get a full perspective on that one as well. I also think that medical stuff you mentioned that leads into theaters of war as well. That's going to be a big gameplay thing in that for sure, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think this is going to be a big thing for anybody who wants to do combat with the team, because
Mm.
now instead of in 315, instead of when you die, you're just back to a station or you're back to spawn point in theaters of war. Instead, you're going to have the ability to, if you've got somebody with you, a friend, they can bring you back up again. They can get you back in the game, which I think is an improvement over what we have right now, which is just either you're dead or you're not dead, and there's no in between.
You got downstates now, so there's no. It's actually going to take a lot of that frustration out. Think of how many times. Actually, this might be a weird time to bring it up, but I heard from a sister org of an org I was hanging out with that they went on stream and killed you, and you got really salty about it. And I heard about this about a month ago. But things like that wouldn't happen because if someone was with you, because it was in a bunker, they told me they killed you. You could have been brought back by your friends. That and even when you accidentally die and things like that, like we've all been on that a receiving end of a bug in this game at the moment where it kills you and you got to take 20 minutes just to get back to where you were. Um, they're all gonna go away a bit, I think, with just ability to bring people back. Yeah.
Mm.
That's a great point. That even though this is coming in, and I'm sure the first thought is, well, there's so many glitches. How am I going to get past this without losing stuff to these glitches? I think it's important to remember that they really need to bolster the law system to make sure, because just like you said, if they had killed Morph, somebody could have stopped them and revived him. But at
Mm.
the same time, they could have killed everybody and then stolen all their stuff.
Well,
So
Oh, so that is the next thing in 315, right? What Tomato just said,
yeah.
they can steal your stuff, right?
Mm.
yeah, so the personal inventory coming in, they're also going to need to really start thinking about how to, and I mean, like you said, the law system's in, prison is in, but it's still kind of a halfway experience. They need to bolster that to make sure that people have consequences to doing stuff like that, or else everybody's just going to be robbing each other.
At the moment,
Right.
the biggest problem I have when I show new players, now I know you do a series space when you show new players, but a lot of the new, like I was showing a new player the other day, and we were doing a bounty hunting mission, and he accidentally shot me, and then someone turned up and killed him, and I couldn't save him in time. He ended up in prison, got so frustrated with it, he just logged off. Um, that there's just like tiny little things, and once those dots are connected, where, because you can't forgive them at the moment because that's a bug in the game. But once you can forgive people, once you can revive people, and all that type of thing, I think a lot of those frustrations will start to, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying about permadeath morph. People are really worried, like they're going, "There's all these bugs. I don't want to permanently be dead." Like they're putting those two together,
Right.
but I think they're going to get rid of a lot of these before permadeath comes in.
So right, that then you're now leading into the big issue with 315 that a lot of people saw. So
Mm,
when I did that video, I was really taken aback by just how negative everybody was in the comment section about it. They weren't negative at me. I'm like, I was just reporting stuff, but they were really like, holy crap, like, what is this? This is gonna kill the game. I'm never gonna play Star Citizen anymore. Nobody wants this. Like I die like with my legs breaking on stairway. Like I don't want to have permadeath because of that. Like people are really freaked out about this coming in 315.
mm. I do. Well, let's be honest. I'm a little worried about it because I still think the law system as a whole was introduced too early. Especially as I said with people like new people. I haven't been to an event, and you can ask the guys that do the events with. I haven't been to an event where I've accidentally got a crime stat for something I didn't do. Whether it be I'm the pilot and the ship decides to walk through the planet and kills everyone, and so I take half an hour to get back to where I was because I have to work off a crime stat. Um, or you accidentally touch the ground at ArcCorp and they close the hangar doors in your face and they want you to fly all the way to the other side of the solar system and back just to get rid of your crime stat and to do what you were going to originally do. there needs to be a little bit more forgiveness, but also at the same time, if they go back and rebalance it and they keep having to rebalance things, it just takes more time to get the development done. So I know why they haven't. But do you just get them to turn it off? Like there's so many questions there. But as you said, I definitely don't think they're going to put permadeath in without fixing some of the issues we currently have. It would just game in its
I
current
think
state. I think a
this.
lot of people would work away, like you're
I think
suggesting.
I think this goes to a pretty important conversation that you could always have, and that is, should CIG be focusing on making sure the game is enjoyable and playable for people who are testing it, or should they focus on making sure the things that need to be tested get in the game to be tested, even when they don't really make much sense? And that is a
You've
constant back and forth.
It's a balance, dude, because if it goes too far one way, people won't play, and if it goes too far the other, you don't get any new innovation unless you get in
Right.
really big, huge clumps. So yeah,
And
it's a
Morph
balance.
said it in his
Yeah, go
Well,
ahead.
Morph said it in his video that this is a feature that should be in now because, well, Morph, why don't you explain? You were talking about the risk involved.
Right. So there's a couple of reasons why we need to have this sort of stuff in. One of the, first and foremost, you guys have to remember, and I know you guys know this, I'm just speaking in general, that Star Citizen is an alpha and it's a test environment. We are testing the game to see what systems work, what systems don't work, what needs to be tweaked from their concept, because not everything works exactly as you imagine. This is just something that's a reality of anything when you're dealing with game design or design in general. In the real world, we have this issue too. And so I think that when you put this in, should rather be more early than late, because ultimately right now there aren't many stakes that you have for permadeath. Permadeath, as it's been explained right now, would just be you having to create a new character and losing some reputation, which we have every time they have a patch every 3 months. Every 3 months we lose all of our reputation and we lose our character creation, which is basically permadeath. Our character is permanently dead.
Yeah.
The old one we had, we can't recreate it. We can try to create a facsimile of it, but ultimately we have no way to copy paste the same parameters we used to create that character again. They're gone. So why? My question then would be like, if you want them to wait, wouldn't it be don't you think it would be a bad idea, considering that at that point, they'd be figuring out whether or not these systems work when there are actual stakes involved, when you actually could have your gameplay experience severely changed by the fact that you've lost reputation and now you can no longer buy that plot of land on that planet that you're working towards. Now you can no longer buy that ship you really want. You were like maybe one tick away from being able to buy the Cutlass Blue, because it's a really high tier in the bounty hunting reputation system. Now you can't, because you tripped on something and you died and you perma-died. That doesn't exist right now.
No.
So we should. I am of the opinion that they need to get these systems in. Look, listen, it's been 10 years, right? They need to get these really important systems in, test to see if these concepts are actually fun.
You do
And the
know.
second thing,
Sorry,
and
just
the other part of this, I want to finish this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
I
The
wrote it down.
other really important thing to remember is that, like, Chris's vision of the game is that it's a simulation. He wants people. The reason why he created permadeath, the whole premise behind it is he wants people to act in a more realistic way, more real than you do in other games, where there's actual stakes involved. That if you die, it's something you don't want to do. Because right now, in most games, you're just running around willy nilly, jumping off cliffs. Because who the hell cares? I mean, if you die, it doesn't really matter. You just buy that thing again at the worst. But in Star Citizen, like it's supposed to really matter. And so your decisions and what you do and the balance, the meta, the places you go, the things that you do, it could not possibly be the same in the current environment as it would be in the environment they want to create. So they could be balancing right now for a game that is wrong, because it's not the close enough to the end product of the game that they want to create. If you get what I'm saying? Like, it's hard to balance for how people are going to behave when they don't behave how they will behave when you have that system in.
Right.
I just wanted to add on to what you said about the reputation system. They mentioned years ago, just like in real life, like my dad's a plumber, and I know other plumbers because my dad's a plumber, right? And so if my dad passes away and I took over his job, if I moved into becoming a plumber, I would have help from the other plumbers. So one of the things he mentioned with the reputation system is that it's not 100% loss of reputation. You
Hmm.
kind of pick up the mantle of your parent, and you basically. I don't know what the level would be. I'm guessing maybe if you're at 100% reputation, you might lose 20 to 25%. That's a total guess, right, by the way. But you would still be fairly high up and well known in that organization. Like if Morphologis is a pirate, his son or daughter, when he takes over them, they will also be known as a pirate. You know, the sins of the father type of thing. So it's not going to be this 100% thing. And I think if they take the reputation system and kind of like turn that on a bit more with the permadeath stuff, and we get a bit of that rep carryover stuff, really interesting compared to like if it's just 100% lost. No, that's as you
Obviously,
said.
that's too
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
right? That
yeah,
would
Yeah.
not be fun. But that's the thing. Like, they need to be able to tune what is fun. Like, they can talk all day long in concept
yeah,
and have these imagine sessions like we're having now. But ultimately, you need to get it in the game so we can figure out, is it
Yeah.
actually fun? Because what X factors have we not considered? Because there are going to be a ton of things we've not even talked about. Inevitably, we could never think of, because
yeah.
players will think of them. They'll do some crazy thing that we never thought of. And like, oh shit, well, I guess that can't work that way,
And
can it?
and
Yep.
they've got to get those levels right too, because if you're grinding for 50 hours to get the last 3 pips of some reputation,
Mhm.
and then you die accidentally, and then you've got to do it again for 50 hours. Oh no, no,
Right,
people are going to be
the
really mad. You know,
reverse is also true. Like, what if
exactly.
it's not meaningful enough? Like, people are still ramming each other on pads. Like,
Yeah,
that's the sort of behavior that this is supposed to curtail. Like, being a dick in the game is going to have consequences. But
mm,
if it has no consequences, people are just going to be a dick, because you look at games like Rust, everybody just kills each other because
yeah.
who cares? But that's not the sort of experience that Chris has said explicitly he wants. He doesn't want a Rust environment. He wants something a little bit more close to reality.
I think that's why we're also seeing a move towards hangers over pads, because there was a big ruckus during the week about taking away Port Alice's pads, because they're moving now to hangers. But again, that just removes that. And quite honestly, if you think about it from a realism perspective, it's definitely more cost effective to build a hanger than it is to have gravity tech so you can just have pads. Um, but that's just my 2 cents, and that will obviously stop a lot of ramming, because you can't ram something in a hangar. It also increases immersion and realism, because the ship's not just appearing and spawning on the pad. Um, I think there's lots of other benefits, because that allow it to stream in and stuff like that. It also protects ships that have cargo on it. How many people are like, how, I don't know about you guys, but I've heard lots of complaints of people that have spawned a ship at Port Alisar and it's dead before they even get in it, and they lose all the cargo, and they lose millions of Alpha UEC and all that stuff. So I think the griefing element will definitely roll back a bit with that being brought in, just removing of pads and hangers instead. But yeah,
This is
Right.
yet this is just yet another conversation that shows how ridiculously big and complex reputation's gonna have to be in this game. The
Yeah.
reputation system is going to tie into so many things. It's crazy. I really hope that the back end of that system is prepared for all that. I mean, it has to be. Obviously, they've been planning all this, but my
And
gosh.
I think ultimately that is one of the big things I'm worried about with 315. And that's a component of the system that I think many probably weren't considering in the comment section, that's going to affect the way people behave. Because it's not just about having consequences. It's also about knowing who to deal with. So, for example, people were talking about being griefed with this new medical gameplay. Because the medical gameplay, we didn't mention this already yet, is that you can now have healing. You can now heal people, right? So there's going to be this loop now where people who've got Cutlass Reds are going to go down and heal people. People are saying, well, what if I'm just a dick and I take these like medical missions to heal a player who's down, and I just kill them and steal their stuff? Because yeah, I can.
you get a crime stat.
There's what?
Wouldn't you get a crime stat for stealing?
Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. So the issue is, like, without reputation in the game with to this level yet, there's no way to differentiate the dicks from the people who are actually going to help you when you put out a contract. There's no way to see somebody's contract reputation. So I'm a little bit worried about that.
Well, from a
Well, there's
personal,
your
I was just going to say real quick on that point that he made about people stealing. what are you really going to lose? Because now personal inventories are in, you can only really lose what's on your person. So what are you going to lose? A gun, a couple of grenades?
I think that's true. I think that's true. But what about the
Let's say
new gray
leave,
cat gear?
let's say leave you
Like you had to
naked
pay for
on a
that.
planet. Sorry, your gray cat. What? Sorry, like a suit.
The new gray cat armor,
Yeah,
or the new Atslan armor. Like if you wear that stuff out,
but if they take
like
your entire suit off of you and you die from asphyxiation, they murdered you, so they get a crime stat. If
they
they
do, but
Well,
they have your stuff now, and there's no way to get it back.
well, Morph, weren't you talking about the possibility or the idea of adding a medical beacon?
No, that's what I was
That
saying. That's what I was saying is the medical beacon system. This was. I'm sorry. Let me backtrack here. So, when I was talking about the gameplay loop, I suspect, though they've not mentioned this, that they're going to have a new beacon that you put out, like the transportation beacon. It's going to be a medical beacon. So when you get hurt, when you're down, when you need help, you put out the beacon, and somebody can take the beacon. But same as for what the transport beacon has right now, there's no contract reputation for anybody, so they can take that contract and just come kill you, which is what happens right now with the transportation beacon. Half the time,
Nice.
people just come there to kill you. So reputation is supposed to fix that issue, but it will not for 315 with this massive change. And I am a little bit worried about that. I think it's important to get the stuff in, though. I want to be clear. I'm just aware that there could be some
teething issues.
some
Yeah,
problems.
that's a very. I did not know that the contract ratings weren't working because I
See,
was thinking that would be a solid answer to that.
a very simple one would be if you are killed in a particular area, it affects your reputation. So, for example, say you're killed around Crusader, it brings the reputation down with Crusader security or Hurston security or Microtech or whatever. That would be a very simple fix at the moment, and also gives you currently, if you kill someone in a crime stat area, medically, if you kill them, it's a kill. So if you take their suit off them, I think that should trigger a crime stat because you're essentially murdering them.
You get negative reputation right now, yeah?
I think so.
Is that
Yeah, you
I
do.
guess
You do.
that would coincide with the crime stat. I was gonna say, is at some point your negative reputation caused them to shoot on sight, but I guess the crime stat also does that, though they'll be changing that soon so that obviously we can surrender. They're working on the gosh, what was it? They're talking about different ways that you could be stopped or be given a crime stat for trespassing and stuff like that. Just a couple of fixes that they're putting in there. But what I'm getting at is that I lost my train of thought.
I do have a question, and it's a little bit off what you were saying, but here in the notes you mentioned law changes to hacking. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit? Because I find that's
Oh, I was just grouping those two together in that hacking, well, the obviously hacking is going to come together with the law changes since with trying to get rid of your crime stat, you have to do the hacking. But I was just hacking my crime stat away the other day, and of course died right in the middle of it. But I was just sitting there and I was thinking to myself, like, this is incredibly unapplied. And when they bring in the new hacking gameplay, the way that they've figured it in, it sounds like it's going to be a big change to that whole loop. I when I wrote those down, I didn't really necessarily mean that they were connected, but I just kind of grouped them.
Oh, sorry, I thought I'd ask. All right.
Good.
Man, we've been through a lot of stuff. We've even talked of landing zone changes.
I'd like to just mention for 315, this is probably going to be like an honorable mention considering all the features that are going in there, but it sounds like they're going to have the asset manager done for 315 with building blocks, and that will be, I think, another very big change that will affect everybody because we all know the personal inventory system, the what is it, the PMA is god awful. So bad.
yeah.
It is. But
Um
this brings up another point that we actually intend to talk about in this video. This is the when we're freeforming it. Sometimes, like I don't structure things the way that I probably should, but we probably should have talked about why we need an asset manager. So, do you know why we need one? Does anybody want to take that one?
Well,
well, I
there's
mean,
the sheer number of things we'll have on totally different planets, the different ships we'll have, all that type of stuff.
Right. We've
Like,
so we haven't actually explained what the physicalized inventory actually means in 315 yet. Is what I'm getting at.
yeah.
mhm.
So essentially, your personal inventory is what you carry on you. Your asset manager is everything you own everywhere.
Mhm.
So essentially, you talked before about someone stealing your stuff. All they're stealing that is on your person. That's not like the only stuff they're ever going to be able to steal off you is the stuff in the ship you're out on and on your
Mhm.
person or the vehicle you're in. That's it. So anything you don't want stolen, leave it at home, and you'll be
Yeah,
fine.
so everything's going to be localized, but it sounds like they're picking a pretty decent sort of halfway to not making it just ridiculously cumbersome, kind of like the eco
Mm,
execute that you like to
yeah.
play, where you'll be in a city, you won't have to actually go to your bedroom to get your clothes. It sounds like because you're in that city, you will have access to the local inventory at
Mm,
that bedroom, the same that you'll have access to the local inventory at your storage cabinet somewhere at the
yeah.
spaceport. Um,
At least
and
in
then once you leave,
at least initially.
yeah,
Initially,
at
yeah.
least
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah, and then they've talked about like the really obvious example is so if your ship is close enough to a port, you can just transfer the items in your ship by dragging it from one window to another to put it into
Mhm.
the station. But eventually, when you do that, the AI will come along and actually physically start moving it from one space to another. So they are going to do it in
Mm.
stages, and I do think at least initially when you're down on a planet, you can access, say, all the stuff back in your hab, but initially, later on, you'll have to actually go back to your hab to pick it up yourself. Um,
I
s-
really hope that when that does happen, they allow me to drag that asset to the other space, but then there's some sort of a timer on that thing that says, "Okay, it'll be there, but this is how long until it's there." That way, you have an idea of how you set it up.
mhm,
But getting back to that idea, the asset manager,
yep.
as Morph was saying, this is why we need one. We need to be able to see where our things are at which location and know which ones are accessible to us to move our things in between.
Can you imagine
And that
actually trying to locate something and you didn't know where it was?
uh,
Like I have trouble trying to
I do
find
it
my
every day.
wallet. Where would I find my
Yeah.
wallet in the hab that's on like another solar system over? I'd be
Yeah.
terrible. I'm one of those people that runs
Yeah.
around going, "Where are my sunglasses?" and they're on my head. Like. So yeah, and I hope it's searchable. I really, really do. I hope I can put up the top, like I can type in, like you said, grey cat armor, and it shows me where all
Mhm.
the grey cat armors are that I own. I go, oh, okay, so the closest one's on Lawville, and I'll go pick it up or whatever. Or oh shit, it's too far away. I'm just going to buy a new one. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think that is stuff that they would do. I think the sheer amount of loot, as you would put it in this game, is going to be astronomical compared to other games, just purely based on how much we move around and the sheer side of the universe. That video we
Yeah.
did
Mhm.
last week with Tampa, um, 2 days to warp across one system at full speed. That's
Nice.
crazy.
Yeah.
So we're definitely in for some big things. I think we'll start to wrap it up here. This is actually the longest episode of Inforunners ever now, by the way.
How long have we been going for? Oh, geez.
Almost 1 hour and 20 minutes. So yeah, we've passed it by
77 minutes. Yeah.
about 3 minutes ago was the long. It's now the longest Inforunners ever. But what I would like to get from you guys is what are you guys looking for? Because we did talk about a little about 315, but just like to the end of the year, what are you looking forward towards to the end of the year, and then we'll wrap it up. So,
There's a list.
well,
Or if you go first.
all right.
Oh, geez. Well, I'm actually really looking forward to 315 and the inventory changes and the changes to medical gameplay. The down states, because I think it's really going to transform the way we play the game. But ultimately, more than that, I'm looking forward to more gameplay loops. So I
Me too.
hope.
That was what I was going
You
to
know, I
say.
I I I don't know if it's going to get the 315. I think that this is something they're going to try is to get loot boxes inside. And I don't mean like loot boxes like the cash runs. I'm talking about
Yeah,
ones that you can
yeah.
find in the world, so that
You just you just
going in
had
going
everyone just had a heart attack when you say that. Just so
right,
we're on the
right,
same page.
right. Yeah. No, I'm talking about they've been working on this these lootable locations that you can go to, and I think we really do need that as part of the gameplay loop to encourage people to go explore and find stuff. And with this inventory system, I mean, it'd be a shame if we didn't have it. So I'm looking forward to this because I think it's going to be really it's really going to transform Star Citizen into something much more resembling an MMO.
Morph, I now need to see a video by you with the most clickbaity title that says "loot boxes in Star Citizen," and it's just all about what you just said. That'd be great. You'll get thousands of views, and
It's
people
totally
will be
gonna
like,
be
"What
so.
the?" Yeah, and it'll be
Oh boy.
hilarious. But yeah. One last thing, Morph. What is the ship you're looking forward to the most out of the ships that are coming out between now and the end of the year? I'm just curious.
Um, I think.
I'm gonna go look up which ships are coming.
Yeah, which ships are coming out?
Mine is based off, especially based off what we're talking about today when we're talking about gameplay changes and multiplayer and multi-crew and all that stuff, is the Redeemer. I am so excited for that ship.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, remember all the possibilities of the Hammerhead that we were going to have where we could all sit around, but it's just too many people? It's the mini Hammerhead. You can get 3
Yeah.
people and go around and just cause some chaos.
Yeah.
2 5-size turrets. That's the same large turret on the Reclaimer and the Starfarer. That thing, oh, sorry, Starfarer is a size 4, not size 3, 5. But you get my point. That's going to be a deadly little fun ship to fly.
Yeah, I think I'm actually with you on that one. I think it's the Redeemer because just like I was talking about earlier, one of the things that I really don't like about Star Citizen's current gameplay for combat is that unless you're doing PvE, multi-crewing just isn't viable. And one of the only ships that is viable is the Hammerhead, but it requires. Wait, I can hear myself again. I'm sorry.
Sorry, my fault.
No worries. One of the big problem with the Hammerhead is that you can get it out there and it'll do well, but you need to have it fully manned for it to make sense, and that just isn't practical on like when you want to jump on and have fun. But if you've got a friend or two,
Yeah.
hop into a Redeemer. You
Mm.
get like the size of those turrets, they're gonna do some serious damage. I mean, mini Hammerhead, you got it.
I'd like to say
I've been in so many
I was
I've
gonna
been
say,
in so many situations where I've had 2 or 3 friends and we've been like, what ship do we use to go fight people?
mm. And you want to be able to do things like constellations, and I think the Star Run you can do a little bit at the moment, but it's just not combating enough in my opinion. But yeah,
I think that we also need to wait and see with 314. I think we need some time with it to figure out how much they've actually fixed with the because apparently turrets, I don't know if you guys know this, have a much bigger capacitor pool. Like they can fire a lot faster and a lot longer than like main ship guns.
that'll
And
change
so
that'll change the game.
yeah,
That will
yeah,
100%.
it should.
Yeah. The other one I'd like to give an honorable mention to as ships go would be the A2, but I just don't think the ground combat's there to warrant the bombing yet. We also don't have any anything to really bomb. Like why?
Right.
Like what are you gonna do? Bomb a tank? You can't bomb a building that someone's built, so I can't knock someone else's sandcastle down. Yeah, maybe I can go bomb an event and destroy everyone's event that they're trying to organize, but that's like it's.
Oh,
I can
yeah.
only see it being used for griefing at this point, but yeah.
You know what's on the roadmap or the progress tracker that I haven't seen them put on the roadmap yet is actually the nav meshing for AI on planet surfaces. I think that if they can get that in this year, it's also going to really transform the way Star Citizen looks and feels because we'll have ground-based missions, you know, where you got people walking around, driving vehicles, NPCs where you can do assassination missions, bombing runs. We don't have that right now. It's a big deal. We can have animals too.
Yep.
Fauna. They've got
It's all
those little floating things on Hurston and stuff. You know.
all locked behind server meshing. All of
Yeah.
that is locked. Like I guarantee server meshing is going to come in, and over the next couple of months straight after that comes in, I think we're going to get a lot of things roll in because they've all just been sitting there ready to come in. Even Chris and Sandy's message that they dropped last Friday, talking about AI on chairs. That's why AI is on chairs. There's just not enough bandwidth when the server meshing's not in. So yeah. Space Tomato, your favorite ship you're looking forward to, and the things you're looking forward to towards the end of the year. I assume they're very similar to ours, but you.
I'm so glad you said things because I have two,
Right,
and
yeah.
I can't choose between.
No, go
So
for
the
it.
first one is actually fairly minor, but it's going to make such a big difference to me, and that is the reworked star map. Um, just having an interface that works, and also I'm assuming the ability to actually like set our own waypoints or filter out destinations or actually use it like it's supposed to be used. Oh God, I can't wait. I can't wait to open my star map and know what I'm gonna see.
Or
The
to be
other
able to or to be able to like actually see what the location that you're flying to looks like. Be able to like, oh, that location on the
Yeah,
planet looks good. Let's go to there for that event. You know, we don't we it's just
yeah,
useless right now. We can't use it for that.
yeah. Like you try to zoom in on a on something and it disappears.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so that's the first one for me. The other one is actually the cargo refactor,
Hmm.
and that one is because I see that they have the whole C scheduled for about the same time that they at least project the cargo refactor to be finishing up on the progress tracker. This very well could be a thing that doesn't happen, but if they're bringing those two things in at the same time, then I think they're probably going to be focusing on making sure that the economy can support that, which makes me believe that cargo will see a lot of focus for that patch. So
Mm.
I'm hoping that with the cargo refactor comes a renewed interest in cargo hauling and a better ability for people to do that because that's going to be the backbone of everything.
We were saying that before the show. I was especially saying that to Morph that there's a whole series in every patch next year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I think we can look forward to a very long year of cargo hauling next year.
I
I've got
hope so.
Quanton stuff, yeah.
It's
yeah.
very important part of the game.
What about your ship that you're looking forward to out of the ones that are releasing? Do you have one or
Well, I'm gonna cheat, and since I said the cargo refactor is my favorite feature, that just naturally includes the whole C. So I'll
okay?
just go with the Redeemer as well.
Okay.
Like I said, I've been in the position multiple times where I've been with two friends, two newcomers who want to play, or just two randoms, and we're like, "Cool, let's go do some bounty hunting. Which ship should we use?" And we just sit there and we're like, "Well, we could get a fighter and a heavy fighter, or we could maybe all get in a Mercury Star Runner. But
Mm,
the Redeemer is going to be that go-to choice now, which is
mm.
pretty cool because bounty hunting is one of the more interesting things to do right now.
Yeah.
So mine obviously is the Redeemer, so I'll get the ship out of the way. But the star map is a really pivotal one I had written down. Gameplay loops, which I also got from Morph, which I did have written down, and the other two are two really weird ones. So I'll get rid of the weirdest one first. I was really excited about the customized ramps and elevators on surfaces. I know that sounds really weird, but I've actually got stuck on planets before because I couldn't get
Hmm.
back on the ramp or elevator. So it sounds really
Yeah.
dumb, but I thought that was going to come much, much later. So that's
Huge quality of life, yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And the last one is interior culling. I can't believe they don't have that in. I just assumed it was in, but it's not. That is going to improve the quality of this game out of sight. Every time you run into a ship, it's just going to run so much smoother. The frame rates are going to go up
It's going to
just from
be
that alone.
very good for capital ships.
Yep.
Yes. That might be actually the blocker for them getting stuff like the Javelin and the Idris going in the game. Is just there's like, you know, remember back in the Invictus event, like people's computers were just tanking in FPS when the Javelin
Yep.
would
Yeah.
fly in because of the
Yeah.
interior of it.
Yep. So for me, interior culling is more important than I think most people realize. I do know at the moment when you turn up in a big ship to an event, people get really mad because their computers run crap. So if you turn up in an 890 jumper or a claimer, they get really mad. But that won't be as big as problem anymore because it's just the outside. So it's definitely going to alleviate a lot of those issues. So that
I hope that really helps.
another quality of life for me. All right then. I hope you guys enjoyed talking because I always enjoy talking to both of you and catching up. It's not something that we always get to do because we're always doing our own little thing. But yeah,
Yep.
thanks for coming today, Morph. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
I can be found at Morphologis Twitch TV.com/Morphologis or YouTube slash Morphologis, YouTube.com/Morphologis. You can find me on YouTube. Just search Morphologis.
I was half expecting you to give your postal address the way you were talking. It was kind of
Oh
funny.
God.
Yeah. You could send all your fan mail to PO Box. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. And Space Tomato, whereabouts can people find you? Because I know you stream as well.
Basically the same. I am Space Tomato on YouTube. I am also Space Tomato 2 on YouTube. And I stream at Space Tomato Gaming,
Mm,
twitch.tv/Space Tomato Gaming. Yeah.
yep.
See.
Yeah. I know.
It's
But hey, I like
it's
to
confusing.
plug everyone. It's just polite and share all the stuff. It's good. I'll close it off with hashtag Jaden in the comments below for your chance to win F7 upgrade and Super Hornet. Fortunately, Eric Lanza is no longer with us, and his friend is looking for a new home for his former mate's ship. With with that, we will be off, and we'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one.